Today, I want to talk about something we often overlook in the age of constant communication, the power of silence. More specifically, the wisdom in not telling everyone what's going on in your life. We live in a world where people share everything, every success, every failure, every dream, every plan. Social media has made it feel normal to broadcast our lives, but normal doesn't always mean wise. Every time we speak about our lives, especially our plans, our problems, or our progress, we invite energy in. Sometimes it's encouragement, but often it's judgment, envy, or unsolicited opinions. There is real strength in discretion. There is value in working quietly, healing privately, and moving in silence. Not everyone needs to know everything. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. It's a hard truth, but one we must accept if we want to protect ourselves. Not everyone who listens to you cares about you. Some people appear supportive, but behind the mask of interest, there may be jealousy, judgment, or even ill will. Sharing the details of your life with the wrong people is like handing over the blueprint of your emotional house. Suddenly, they know where to poke holes, where the weak points are, and how to cause damage if they choose. Often, we assume that because someone smiles or nods while we're talking, they're on our side. We assume that silence means agreement and that attention means approval. But the truth is, some people are only listening so they can talk about you later. They're not trying to understand your journey. They're collecting content for gossip. They'll take your struggles and exaggerate them. They'll take your successes and downplay them. And when things go wrong, they're the first to say, "I knew it." There's also a group of people who project their own insecurities onto you. When you share something exciting, like a new job, relationship, or personal goal, they might act happy for you, but inside they feel threatened or envious. These are the people who give backhanded compliments, subtle discouragement, or plant seeds of doubt. "Are you sure you're ready for that? That sounds risky. I wouldn't do it that way." Over time, these little comments chip away at your confidence and enthusiasm. And let's not forget about energy drainers, the ones who pretend to be interested in your life, only to compare it with theirs or use it to make themselves feel superior or inferior. Sharing with them becomes exhausting because every conversation turns into a performance or a competition. This is why discretion is so important. The more personal details you expose, the more vulnerable you become to misinterpretation, misrepresentation, and manipulation. Keeping certain things to yourself isn't about being secretive. It's about being strategic with your energy and selective with your trust. Your life is not a public broadcast. It's a sacred journey, and not everyone deserves a front row seat. There's a certain excitement that comes with setting goals or starting something new. Whether it's launching a business, writing a book, starting a fitness journey, or pursuing a dream, that spark of motivation is powerful. Naturally, we want to share that excitement with others. We post it online, tell our friends, or announce it to family, expecting support, encouragement, or at the very least, recognition. But what most people don't realize is that sharing your plans too early can actually rob you of the energy you need to carry them out. When we talk about our goals, our brain gets a small psychological reward. It gives us the same emotional satisfaction as actually accomplishing the goal, even though nothing has been done yet. That premature praise, those claps, those likes, and "you got this" comments, they can trick you into feeling like you've already arrived, when really, you've just taken the first step. This is called social reality. When you tell people your plans, your mind registers their reactions as if you've already achieved something. That sense of accomplishment is temporary, and it wears off quickly, leaving you with less internal drive to push forward. In other words, talking too much can drain the discipline and hunger required to succeed. And there's another danger, scrutiny. When you announce your goals, you open the door to judgment, skepticism, and uninvited feedback. Suddenly, your personal dream becomes a public conversation. People may question your path, criticize your approach, or compare your pace to someone else's. Instead of focusing on building your dream, you're now focused on defending it or proving others wrong. What began as a source of joy and motivation becomes clouded by the noise of opinions, doubts, and pressure. You start second, guessing your choices, tweaking your plans not because it feels right, but because you're trying to meet someone else's expectations. And before you know it, the project stalls, not because you weren't capable, but because the outside noise overpowered your inner voice. That's why the early stages of any goal are sacred. They are fragile and need protection. Like a seed planted in soil, you don't dig it up every day to show people it's growing. You water it quietly. You protect it from harsh weather. You trust the process in silence until it's strong enough to be seen. Momentum is powerful, but it's also delicate. And if you waste it on empty conversations or the need for validation, you risk never getting off the ground at all. In a world where oversharing is the norm and silence is misunderstood, choosing privacy is often seen as mysterious or even suspicious, but the truth is, privacy is a form of self-respect and emotional self-defense. It creates a buffer between your inner world and the chaos of the outside one. It gives you space to think, feel, and grow without interference. When you keep aspects of your life private, whether it's your relationships, your finances, your struggles, or your plans, you are not being secretive, you are being intentional. You're choosing to preserve your mental clarity and emotional stability. Every time you share something deeply personal, you're handing over a part of your peace to someone else, hoping they'll handle it with care. But the reality is, not everyone will. People interpret your life through their own lens, through their biases, experiences, and emotions. What you share in vulnerability might be twisted into a judgment. What you express in excitement might be met with envy or dismissal. And every opinion, every reaction, no matter how small, can begin to occupy space in your mind, creating unnecessary tension or confusion. What once felt clear and calm becomes crowded with outside noise. Keeping things private doesn't mean you're cutting people off or refusing support. It simply means you're drawing boundaries that protect your emotional energy. Just as we lock our doors at night, not because we hate people, but because we value safety, we should guard certain areas of our lives for the same reason, to maintain peace of mind and emotional security. Privacy also grants you time to understand your own experiences before others influence your interpretation of them. When something is fresh, be it a new love, a challenge, a win, or even a failure, it's still forming meaning. Talking about it too soon can lead to absorbing others' perspectives before you've fully processed your own. That can make your journey feel less like yours and more like a story you're managing for public consumption. And in today's culture of constant comparison, privacy is an anchor. When you keep your progress and personal affairs out of public view, you resist the trap of needing to measure up or prove yourself. You stop performing and you start living. The fewer people who know your business, the fewer people you have to explain yourself to, justify your decisions to, or apologize to when life doesn't go as planned. Peace is fragile. It doesn't announce itself or demand attention. It lives in quiet spaces, protected from loud opinions, judgmental eyes, and chaotic conversations. When you make your life a little more private, you don't lose connection. You gain control. You gain clarity, and most importantly, you gain peace, real growth. The kind that transforms you from the inside out isn't loud, glamorous, or social, media-friendly. It's raw, uncomfortable, and deeply personal. And because of that, it's something that happens best away from the spotlight. In a world that constantly pressures us to share every move and document every milestone, we've forgotten one vital truth. Some of the most powerful progress happens when no one is watching. When you're in a season of growth, you're likely battling internal struggles, self-doubt, fear, emotional wounds, or the habits you're trying to break. You might not have the language to express what you're going through, or the confidence to even admit it fully to yourself yet. That space of vulnerability is where the deepest transformation begins, but it's also a space that needs protection, not exposure. Sharing that growth too soon can open it up to interpretation, judgment, or misunderstanding. People may offer advice that derails your process. Others may invalidate your progress because they can't see visible results. And worst of all, you may start shaping your growth not around what you need, but around how it looks to others. You may feel pressure to appear further along, more successful, or more certain than you actually are. But genuine growth doesn't follow a linear path. It's often messy. You'll have setbacks, contradictions, and days when nothing makes sense. And that's okay. What matters is not what others think of your progress, but that you're actually progressing. And to do that truthfully, you need privacy, a sacred space where you can stumble without embarrassment, reflect without interference, and rebuild yourself on your own terms. Think about how nature works. A tree doesn't sprout overnight. It pushes through soil, fights for light, and weathers seasons before it becomes something strong and visible. And while all that development is happening underground, unseen, it's laying the foundation for everything that comes next. Human growth is the same, the inner work, the emotional resilience, the discipline, the healing, the mindset shift. Can't be rushed or exposed too early. It needs darkness before light. It needs solitude before sharing. When we try to perform our growth too soon, when we try to prove that we've changed or that we're working on ourselves, we dilute the authenticity of that process. Growth doesn't need an audience. It needs space, grace, and time. And ironically, the less you share about it while it's happening, the more powerful and undeniable it becomes once it's complete. So, whether you're healing from something, building something new, or becoming someone better, protect that season. Not because it's something to hide, but because it's something too valuable to risk being misunderstood, rushed, or broken by outside voices. There's a hidden cost to sharing your life too openly, especially when it comes to your goals, decisions, and personal challenges. The pressure to live up to other people's expectations. The moment you tell someone what you're planning to do, what you're struggling with, or what you hope to achieve, you place yourself under an invisible microscope. Whether you realize it or not, you start carrying the weight of their opinions, assumptions, and timelines. When your personal journey becomes public knowledge, it's no longer just your experience. It becomes a performance, and the people you've shared it with become your audience, watching, waiting, commenting, and sometimes silently judging. You might not even hear their voices out loud, but their expectations echo in your mind. I need to prove I'm not failing. I said I would do this, now I have to make it happen, even if I'm not ready. What will they think if I change my mind? This kind of pressure can be suffocating. Instead of following your natural rhythm, starting, pausing, adjusting, or even quitting when it feels right, you feel trapped by your earlier words. You might push yourself into commitments you're not prepared for or stay on a path that no longer serves you simply because you fear being seen as inconsistent or incapable. The truth is, growth is not always predictable, and neither are the challenges that come with it. Life throws curveballs, your interests change, your energy fluctuates, and sometimes what made sense yesterday no longer makes sense today. But when you've already announced your plans to the world, pivoting can feel like fail, even when it's actually wisdom. Moreover, when people know your struggles, they might start offering advice, solutions, or even sympathy that you didn't ask for. What may have been a private challenge you're managing internally becomes a topic of conversation, sometimes laced with pity or unsolicited judgment. Instead of feeling supported, you feel exposed, and often misunderstood. Privacy eliminates that pressure. When you choose not to broadcast your process, you give yourself the freedom to evolve without explanation. You can take detours, make mistakes, and even start over, without feeling the need to justify your actions to anyone. You get to move at your own pace, make choices based on what feels right for you in the moment, and change direction when needed without fearing outside reactions. There's incredible peace and power in that. You're no longer performing, you're living, you're growing, and you're doing it on your terms, without the weight of public expectation. You're free to be human, flawed, flexible, and ever-changing. That freedom is essential, not just for success, but for your mental and emotional well-being. One of the biggest risks of openly sharing what's going on in your life is that your words, often spoken with honesty, trust, or vulnerability, can later be taken out of context, twisted, or even weaponized. We often assume that people will treat what we share with care, respect, and discretion. But unfortunately, not everyone has the emotional maturity or integrity to do that. What starts as an open-hearted conversation can eventually become ammunition in someone else's narrative. Sometimes people will listen not to understand you, but to collect information. They may nod, appear engaged, and even act supportive, all while storing what you say for future use. And when the relationship shifts, when there's tension, jealousy, or misunderstanding, those same words can resurface in damaging ways. They might repeat your struggles to others, mock your dreams, or bring up your past failures to discredit your current growth. Even worse, they may twist your intentions. Something you said out of vulnerability might later be interpreted as weakness. A moment of doubt you shared might be used to paint you as inconsistent. A personal goal you spoke of may be distorted to make you seem arrogant or unrealistic. The more personal information people have, the more power they potentially hold, not to help you, but to control how others see you. And in certain environments, like workplaces, competitive social circles, or even within family dynamics, people can use what they know about you to gain an advantage. They may subtly sabotage you, plant doubts in others' minds, or spread half-truths. All of this can happen behind closed doors without your knowledge, yet with very real consequences for your relationships, reputation, or opportunities. This is why it's so important to be selective with what you share and who you share it with. Vulnerability is powerful, but only when it's handled with respect. When it's given to the wrong people, it becomes a liability. Not everyone who smiles at you has your best interest at heart. Not everyone who listens deserves your trust. Some people ask questions not out of care, but out of curiosity, control, or even competition. There's also the reality that people change. Someone you trusted at one point may not always remain aligned with you. You may drift apart, disagree, or experience conflict. And if that person knows too much about your life, your emotions, your past choices, they now have insight they could use against you if things turn sour. That kind of risk isn't worth it, especially when you consider how quickly trust can break and how slowly it's rebuilt. Guarding your words is not about being paranoid. It's about being wise. You don't have to walk around in fear, but you do have to walk around with discernment. Every detail you share is a seed. In the right hands, it can grow into something beautiful. In the wrong hands, it can be poisoned and turned against you. Your story, your pain, your plans, they are sacred, and sacred things should only be shared with people who have proven they can honor them. One of the biggest mistakes people make, often out of kindness, trust, or the desire to connect, is giving too many people access to the most personal parts of their lives. We assume that because someone is around us, follows us, or asks about us, they're entitled to know what's really going on. But the truth is, your inner world, your thoughts, dreams, struggles, plans, emotions, is sacred space, and not everyone should be allowed to enter. There's a major difference between being private and being distant. You can be loving, warm, and authentic without giving everyone a front row seat to your inner battles or breakthroughs. Being selective with what you share doesn't mean you're hiding anything. It means you're protecting something. You understand that emotional access is a privilege, not a right. Many people are simply not equipped to handle the weight of your truth. Some will minimize it. Some will gossip about it. Some will offer unhelpful, even toxic feedback that leaves you more confused than before. Others may seem interested in your story, but only as a way to feel better about their own situation or to feed their need for drama and comparison. And then there are those who, even with good intentions, simply lack the depth or empathy to understand you. You might bare your soul, thinking you're forming a deeper connection, only to realize later that they viewed your vulnerability as just another piece of information, not something to respect, but something to judge, analyze, or pass around. Not everyone has earned the right to see you unfiltered. Your inner world is where your identity is being shaped, where your decisions are being wrestled with, where your fears and hopes coexist. Letting the wrong people into that space can create emotional clutter. Their opinions start to influence your thinking, their doubts infect your confidence, their unresolved issues project themselves onto your situation. And soon, you're no longer living from a place of self-trust, but from a place of overexposure, trying to make sense of yourself through the lens of too many outside voices. It's essential to create emotional boundaries, not walls to isolate yourself, but filters to protect your energy. You have to ask yourself, has this person earned the right to know this part of me? Have they proven themselves to be safe, trustworthy, and genuinely supportive? Or am I sharing out of habit, pressure, or fear of being alone? Being intentional about who you allow into your private life empowers you. It keeps your circle tight, your energy focused, and your emotional space clean. You stop bleeding emotionally in front of people who would rather watch than help. You stop performing vulnerability for those who only consume it, not honor it. And most importantly, you start building a relationship with yourself that isn't constantly disrupted by the opinions, reactions, or expectations of others. There's wisdom in silence, there's power in mystery, and there's peace in knowing that the most valuable parts of you are being seen, understood, and supported by a select few, those who have earned their place, not demanded it.